Hey, Kate, good to see you again. Today, we are tackling one of those sort of hairy, sticky, tough realities of being an Atlassian marketplace partner and a vendor, which is that limited visibility into who's actually using our products.
That's right. You just don't get the end user details. So you just get the company name and you get the person who signed you up. I mean, there are exceptions to that, but on the whole, that's generally the way it works.
Having come from outside the marketplace into it before and having had this thought myself, it made me think, like, why bother doing half this stuff that I would normally do if I can't see who my users are? The reality is that you can still actually do quite a lot. It took me a while to learn that, but you can still do quite a lot, even if you're tracking product usage. Without that, I think, it's as people say to us, it feels like you're flying blind if you don't have product analytics going.
Oh, to have 10 cents for every time I heard that. Actually, could I
Okay.
have more than that? Could I have like maybe $100 or something? Might be a bit wealthier. So what you do have is you've got a couple of things that you can use. So for me, I think it's really critical that you actually need to instrument your app for product with a product events to capture your product events, because then you can get the company, the account level, and you can get the user level. And to me, that's a must-have if you have visibility. I think there's also other pathways that you can use, like support tickets and the forum posts where users identify themselves. So it gives you your direct engagement. And of course, you've got your one named contact, which, can be a JA or it can be the person who's purchased. And that one's a little bit, but you still got that one name.
And with that one email address that is always Atlassian at company name. Funnily enough, we've seen that one plenty of times. But if you do have that product usage data going, that's actually enough to build a picture, in my experience anyway, of how healthy your customer accounts are, and it can give you ideas as to what you can then do, some actions that you can take with the right tools like Accoil. You can turn those raw signals into clear activation, retention, and growth plays that you do have some control in this. I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah. Well, I mean, ask yourself, you're better to have something than nothing at all. So I'm a glass
Mm.
half full girl, Pete. But as an aside, I think the other thing you need to be thinking about and is you actually need to audit your touch points. Where do I actually get? Where do I actually engage? And, it'll
Yeah.
be things like your community forum, your support tickets, you turn up to user events, event meetups, the Atlassian events. Actually, all these places that if these are your comms lenses. So these are your lanes. These are your ways of getting activity. And so I think you just have to be a bit more structured on that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is a common conversation that we have is qualitative versus quantitative. I still think that you need to have this foundation of how my customers are using my product, right? Without tracking, that is the lifeblood of a B2B SaaS company, is product usage, right? You'll never see the signals that you really need to manage like activation, onboarding, renewals, expansion opportunities if you don't see actual product usage. I mean, you can get it through customer conversations, but it's harder, as we know.
Slow going, and not accurate. Very slow.
Mm.
So if we actually just then start to focus on activation trials, and a lot of people say, I'm not converting enough. My trials are flat, and I'm not converting enough. The reality for me with trials, particular milestones matter. Did they complete their setup? Did they configure their first workflow? You only see that if you've actually instrumented your product events.
Yeah. And so with the right tooling in there, you can flag those incomplete activation steps. And I think it's worth, like, how we think about sort of defining how we think about activation is a series of steps that we want to see customers take so that we know that they're getting value from a product, not always in a straight line, but right. You want to make sure that they're ticking these boxes, using these features, et cetera. And that lets you, when you can see what they're not doing, that lets you nudge these accounts or maybe even that admin in the right direction with guides or helpful hints, that sort of thing, right? Where you can go back and communicate to them.
You can. I think even better yet is if they turn up in support. To me,
Mm.
that's game on. You've kind of got a sense of where they're at in their journey, and you can really influence the conversation and really have much more meaningful. And effectively, potentially over time, these people are flagging themselves as your champions. So I love a good supporters sales opportunity.
Yeah, I learned that from you, so I appreciate that a lot. Just as a quick aside on that, if you can keep your data in one place so that you can easily see who you can contact when the opportunity arises? Like where would you do that, and how do you think about doing that? Because you just mentioned support. That is definitely one channel.
Yeah.
How do you keep track of these names when they're not necessarily presenting themselves to you?
Well, I like them to go into a CRM, and my goodness, isn't the CRM market competitive at the moment? So, there's your usual suspects, but for me, it's piping, and it doesn't have to be everything, guys. It doesn't have to be, but if you can get just the main stuff piping into your CRM, and we used to use this with Proforma, and we use it now, is when someone contacts us, do we have some sort of trail? And for me, it's about building those relationships over time, being authentic, with your VIPs. It's not everyone, but it's just wonderful. You go to an event and someone introduces themselves as a customer. It's just a wonderful, wonderful to do. So build those names. Takes time. Build those names. Put a process into place. Yep, and get on with it. In my view,
Yeah.
get on my view. That's you.
Yeah, and something that may be helpful is, we had a practice of actually, in a light touch kind of way, mapping out organizations, right? So understanding not just a list of names, but kind of why we've contacted or why they've been in contact with us. It does take a bit of manual work, but again, going back to the top of this you got to work with what you have, and
genuinely helpful and authentic.
yeah.
AI and just spamming everyone. Yes, it's a difficult one. Yeah. Anyway, but shall we progress on to onboarding and not take line of conversation? Shall we progress on to onboarding and what we can do about it? What do you reckon?
I think that's a good idea. Yes. So we won't bag on AI today. So onboarding. Okay. So with that, onboarding is super critical for retention, and in onboarding that first month, right? So if we're talking Atlassian space here, you've got, say, a 30-day trial. That month is critical, right? So looking at how often they're coming in and using your product. Is it spread across multiple IDs? If it's only one anonymous ID, are they active? Are they adopting the product? Again, you can do this if you're capturing events and product data.
That's right. And that's the thing, is a lot of people collect events and have all these users, but they're not really mapped to accounts. So you're looking at random, and over time, initially you get your sugar rush, but it's hard to map that out. So I think you need at an account level, and then you have your sum of all your users underneath. And to me, particularly with cloud migrations, etc., and people, risk of being chopped, is in that depth and spread is really, really critical. And so if you've only got really one strong active user, to me, that's a risk. So you really want to understand the depth. And then this is what you use it. I mean, again, it's, you use it. You use the depth and the breadth and how they're using the product, and allows you to then constructively send and contact those people who know who are there with, or even just asking the question saying, it looks like you've got people here not quite understanding who would be the best people we could talk to help with this. So you might have, if you've got one of those ghastly accounts that just have, Atlassian at company name, going through your support people and saying, can you help out here? Because I think you've got some people who are not using the use cases. So for me, it's about from them making their life easier, not just making your life easier.
Yeah. And I think it's worth noting too, and I know you have this conversation regularly with people, that, you can actually go back in and open up support tickets and have conversations with people. And in my personal experience, I've not had a bad experience doing that. In fact, if you're going back with that helpful resource and the context based on that product usage, I found that it's actually quite welcome. People are open to having that kind of conversation. It's not spammy, markety, salesy stuff. It's very legitimately driving them to get more value from your product. So you can open your support tickets again, right? I think that's a little hint. One of the other things that you and I talked about before hitting record here is like those indirect signals. If multiple customers are raising similar or same issues during their onboarding, that be a clue that you need to go and improve the product tour or guides. And if you are sending that stuff to people, maybe you need to surface that a little bit earlier in the onboarding and give them a chance to really understand what's expected of them earlier, so that they can get value from your product.
Well, the data shows, doesn't it? If you don't onboard someone well, chances are you'll churn them.
A very critical part of keeping customers is that onboarding, and I think that's a good next segue into talking about renewals and retentions.
One of my favorites, because I think there is, by building by having your events, by understanding the way people are using, you can also build health scores, and not health scores based on sentiment, nice conversations you've had with people, but like Dig, what they've done. Are they leaning in? Are they not leaning in at an account level or user level? Depth, breadth, score going up. And if you're going down, it's a risk.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that Accoil does really well, right? Is rolls all these signals into a weighted health score so that you can really quickly see which of your accounts are strong, which ones need your attention, and in the words of within the marketplace, number going up good, number going down bad. So it is how you go about at least starting your journey into having these conversations with your customers.
And if you've got your power users and some of them go dark, it's like, you can assume your champion's left. And at least you've got a chance, haven't you? You've got a chance you can step in, don't you reckon, Pete? You can just step in and see if you can actually get to the replacement. Because I was talking to someone the other week and they lost the account. But it was even worse than that, in that the people that actually came in didn't even know their tool existed. So in the onboarding process from the old to the new person, that didn't even get mentioned, which, I was like, oh, because at least you think, oh, I'm going to be on the list and someone's going to talk about me. But it didn't happen. So
that's hard, but it does happen, right? But you can start to see those signals.
Yeah.
I've kind of just in this conversation, talking around this before, I like to joke, like I don't remember the last time I left a job and called all my vendors and said, hey, guess what? Like I just handed in, I'm leaving in 2 weeks, just in case you want to intros around. Unfortunately, I don't think that happens very often. So
no, these days, unless it's a really critical process and then you're in line, but otherwise. But maybe we should talk about happier notes. What about expansion, Pete? I reckon there's an opportunity there.
Well, I guess it's kind of similar, right? So if you've found your power users and you know who to talk to in a company, you can also start to talk about finding other opportunities to expand or spread the use of your product across an account or a company. So, I mean, bottom line here, right, is like more active users equals more stickiness. And you can start to see that happen through the product events, and you can start to see more users pop up, but also the breadth of use kind of, you can see your product spreading across an organization, and that's always pretty cool, but it has to start somewhere.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. And I think also, when you talk to enough people and you see what people do in your product, you start to know which are the advanced features, etc. So if you've got people that are starting to use those advanced features a lot and the number of users are growing in an account, to me, that's a good upsell opportunity. That's a good queue. It's a nice queue. And, the old in-app messaging is always nice here, and where you put your boundaries. But yes, I think it's the signals you can get here.
Yeah. One of those, we've talked about support a few times, but one of those signals, well, I guess what am I trying to say here? Like not all support tickets are bad tickets, right? And so you can really start to identify, happy users. And what we found is that, you hear from people sometimes that if you were to just measure certain accounts and users based on the volume of tickets that they open, you might think bad things. But if you look at what they're saying, are they giving you constructive feedback? Are they being genuinely like giving you really genuine feedback about, I'd really like it if your product can do this, or can you teach me that? And you're getting that kind of positive reinforcement from customers. They may be your next champion there that you can then learn from, turn into case studies, fuel further adoption across other key accounts, that sort of thing. So there are other ways of finding these people. But I do like looking at who's actually using us first and starting there.
Absolutely. And then being genuinely helpful.
Yeah, I think that's right. And then creating content that you can share out, because if you keep saying the same thing over and over again, there's a huge opportunity there to basically establish that and share that up front. So to wrap us up here, bottom line is you really can't afford to ignore product usage data. It's the foundation of your visibility into your customer base.
Yep. Yes, you've got your limited touch points, but you've got a better show of giving more informed advice.
And of course, you can always lean on Accoil to turn those insights into clear plays, right? So it's signal and then action. That's how you make the most of even limited visibility in the Atlassian marketplace. And you can still drive activation, retention, growth. There are opportunities for you in there.